First contact and fatal choice. The quantum communications array aboard the UES Discovery hummed with an unfamiliar frequency. Commander Elena Santos stood at her station, dark eyes fixed on the wavering signal. After 3 months of deep space exploration beyond the Carina Nebula, this was their first indication of non-human intelligence. "Signal analysis complete," announced Dr. Wei Chen, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "It's definitely artificial, but unlike anything in our database. The pattern suggests distress." Elena's jaw tightened. Humanity had spent centuries dreaming of first contact. None of those dreams involved finding an alien species in their dying moments. The signal led them to a dying star system. Around a red giant in its final stages burned 3 planets, and on the second, a world of perpetual twilight. They found the Lizara, bioluminescent humanoids whose bodies pulsed with waves of soft blue light. They were a civilization of scientists and philosophers who had accepted their fate with tragic grace. Their star would go supernova within 50 years. Despite their advanced understanding of quantum mechanics and consciousness transfer, the Lizara lacked practical spaceflight technology. They had focused their evolution inward, developing incredible psychic abilities, but neglecting the physical sciences that might have saved them. When Elena made her report to Earth Central Command, she expected standard first contact protocols. Instead, she received orders that would change the course of human history. Initiate emergency evacuation procedures. Earth will grant the Lizara asylum. The decision sent shockwaves through the galactic community. Humanity had only recently gained observer status in the Galactic Concordat, and their first major action was to unilaterally rescue an entire civilization. The political ramifications were immediate. Most vocal in their opposition were the hegemony of Tarketh, a militant species of silicon-based life forms who had long viewed the Lizara's home system as their rightful territory, once the current inhabitants were naturally removed. To them, humanity's intervention was not just foolish, it was a direct challenge to their expansion plans. "You understand this means war," the Tarketh ambassador transmitted, their crystalline form glittering with barely contained rage. "Your species is young. You cannot comprehend the consequences of your actions." Admiral James Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet stood before the emergency session of the United Earth Council, his weathered face illuminated by the chamber's soft light. "The Tarketh aren't bluffing. Their fleet outguns ours 3-1. They've already begun mobilizing along the Perseus Arm." Counselor Amara Okafor rose from her seat, her voice steady. "And yet you recommend we proceed with the evacuation." "I do." Chen's response was immediate. "The Lizara may lack our technological capabilities, but their understanding of consciousness and quantum entanglement is centuries ahead of ours. More importantly," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "more importantly, this is a test, not of our military strength or our political influence, but of our humanity. We cannot claim to be a spacefaring civilization worthy of respect if our first act upon meeting a dying species is to abandon them to their fate." The council chambers erupted in debate. Hours passed as arguments flew back and forth, scenarios were modeled, and consequences weighed. Finally, Council President Sarah Martinez called for a vote. The decision was nearly unanimous. Earth would stand by its offer of asylum, even if it meant war. Within hours, the largest humanitarian fleet in human history began assembling. Civilian ships were retrofitted for mass evacuation alongside military vessels. The UES Discovery, under Elena's command, would lead the first wave. As Elena watched her crew prepare for their mission, Dr. Chen approached her station. "The Tarketh aren't wrong, you know. This could end badly for us." Elena nodded, her eyes on the tactical display, showing the first ships moving into position. "Probably. But I keep thinking about something my abuela used to say. The right path isn't always the safe one." She turned to face him. "We're doing this because it's right. Everything else is just details." In the dying light of an ancient star, Humanity prepared to make its stand, not for territory or resources or power, but for the simple principle that no civilization should face extinction alone. The consequences would reshape the galaxy, but in that moment, as the evacuation ships began their journey, only one thing mattered. Humanity had chosen compassion over convenience, courage over caution. The war that followed would test that choice to its limits. The price of conscience. The Tar-Keth struck without warning. Their crystalline ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect attack formation, targeting the evacuation fleet's supply lines first. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the UES Intrepid as the first salvos pierced the darkness. Multiple contacts, bearing 030. Lieutenant Park reported, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding on tactical displays. They're targeting our medical frigates. Chen's expression hardened. The Tar-Keth had calculated their attack perfectly, not just militarily, but psychologically. Every medical ship destroyed meant more Lysura civilians would die, even if Earth won the immediate battle. Launch our new quantum shield drones, Chen ordered. The experimental technology, developed in partnership with Lysura scientists, was untested in actual combat. But theory suggested their psychic-enhanced quantum fields could deflect the Tar-Keth's energy weapons. The drones deployed, spreading a gossamer network of quantum fields between the medical ships and the incoming fire. The first volley of Tar-Keth weapons struck the shield and dissipated. Shields holding at 82%, Park announced. The Lysura enhancements are working. But the Tar-Keth had anticipated resistance. Their second wave emerged from hyperspace behind the evacuation fleet, targeting the civilian transports directly. Chen watched in horror as the first transport erupted in silent flame. All ships, execute maneuver Theta, Chen commanded. Concentrate fire on their command vessels, and get me a direct channel to their fleet commander. The holographic figure of war leader Xitol materialized on the bridge, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns that conveyed both amusement and contempt. Admiral Chen, your species' interference was predicted. Your defeat is inevitable. You're targeting civilians, Chen replied, keeping his voice level. That violates 3 separate Concordat conventions. The Concordat. Xtol's form flickered with what might have been laughter. You invoke laws you barely understand to protect a species that should have perished naturally. Your misplaced compassion will be your undoing. As they spoke, human ships moved into defensive formations around the civilian fleet. The quantum shields held, but each impact weakened them further. Earth's vessels were outgunned and outnumbered, but they had one advantage. The Tar-Keth had never faced an enemy willing to sacrifice everything for a principle. Launch the Nemesis protocols, Chen ordered after terminating the communication. The experimental combat AIs, developed in secret for exactly this scenario, activated throughout the fleet. They began coordinating ship movements with inhuman precision, turning the seemingly chaotic human formation into a deadly dance. The battle raged for hours. Human ships, though fewer in number, used their superior maneuverability and AI coordination to maximum effect. The Lysura themselves contributed, their psychic abilities providing split-second warnings of Tar-Keth attacks. But victory came at a terrible cost. By the time the Tar-Keth retreated, a third of the human fleet lay in ruins. The survivors worked tirelessly to rescue escape pods and repair what they could, knowing this was only the first battle of many to come. In the aftermath, Chen received a transmission from Earth. The Council had reviewed the battle footage and casualty reports. They had one question: was protecting the Lysura worth the cost? Chen looked out at his battered fleet, at the medical ships still tending to the wounded of both species, at the Lysura transport crews working alongside human engineers to repair battle damage. He thought of the ships and crews lost, of the families that would receive notifications of their loved ones' sacrifice. Tell the Council, he replied, that today we proved humanity isn't just another species with starships. We're the ones who stand up when it matters. Whatever comes next, that's worth any price. As if in answer, a Lysara child aboard one of the medical ships began to sing. The haunting melody spread through the fleet's communication channels, a lament for the dead and a promise to the living. Human crews found themselves humming along, though none understood the words. In that moment, two species separated by light years of evolution shared something profound: the understanding that civilization is measured not by its power, but by its principles. The war was far from over, but humanity had shown the galaxy something unexpected. Not just technological prowess or military might, but the strength of conviction. The Tar-Keth would return, probably with an even larger fleet, but they would find humanity ready, standing alongside the people they had chosen to protect, no matter the cost. When stars turned to battlefields, Lieutenant Sarah Martinez watched the quantum scanners paint a grim picture. The Tar-Keth had returned with a force 3 times larger than their first assault. Their crystalline vessels formed a perfect geometric pattern that blocked all escape routes from the Lysara evacuation zone. "They've adapted to our shield technology," Chief Engineer Patel reported, his holographic form flickering above the tactical display. "The quantum resonance patterns suggest they've developed some kind of harmonic disruptor." The human fleet, still recovering from the previous battle, faced an enemy that had learned from its mistakes. But humanity had been preparing too. The Lysara's psychic abilities had been integrated into their battle systems in ways the Tar-Keth couldn't predict. Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the command channel. "Execute Operation Starcaster." Across the fleet, Lysara advisors joined their consciousness with human tactical officers. The resulting neural network allowed instantaneous coordination across vast distances, bypassing traditional command and control limitations. The battle began with a Tar-Keth bombardment that lit up space like artificial stars. Their new weapons tore through the quantum shields as predicted, but the human fleet moved with impossible precision, each ship responding to threats before they fully materialized. "They cannot comprehend what we've become," whispered Carl. The Lysara consciousness merged with Martinez's tactical systems. "Their linear thinking is their weakness." The human Lysara hybrid consciousness revealed patterns in spacetime that neither species could see alone. Ships danced through gaps in reality that shouldn't exist, striking at the Tar-Keth from impossible angles. But the enemy's numerical superiority began to tell. Human vessels, despite their enhanced capabilities, fell one by one. The Tar-Keth pressed their advantage, their crystalline ships forming ever tighter patterns around the evacuation fleet. Then Martinez saw it, a pattern within patterns. The Tar-Keth's geometric formations weren't just tactical, they were fundamental to their silicon-based technology. "Admiral," she transmitted, "their ships aren't just in formation. They're forming a single crystalline matrix. If we can find the resonant frequency." Chen understood immediately. "All ships concentrate fire on these coordinates. Match your weapon frequencies to the Lysara consciousness readings." The human fleet's weapons synchronized with the psychic impressions of their Lysara allies. Each shot struck the Tar-Keth formation at precisely the right harmonic frequency. The crystalline matrix began to vibrate, then crack. The Tar-Keth realized too late what was happening. Their perfect formation, their greatest strength, became their undoing. The harmonics rippled through their fleet, shattering ships like glass sculptures in an earthquake. But victory came at a terrible cost. Half the human fleet was destroyed or crippled. The survivors gathered around the civilian transports, their hulls scared and burning, but their resolve unbroken. In the battle's aftermath, Martinez stood in the memorial chamber aboard the flagship. The walls displayed the names of the fallen, human and Lysara alike. Carl's consciousness touched her mind one last time before their link dissolved. "Your people fight differently than any we have known," the Lysara observed. "Not for territory or resources, but for an idea." Martinez watched as more names appeared on the wall. "That's what makes us human," she replied. "We fight hardest for the things we can't see or touch. Justice, freedom, the right to help others even when it costs us everything." The Tarketh would return. Everyone knew that. But they would find something they didn't expect. Two species merged into something greater than either alone, defending not just lives but principles that transcended biological differences. The stars had become battlefields, but they had also become bridges between civilizations. In their shared struggle, humanity and the Lizara were writing a new chapter in galactic history, one where compassion proved as powerful as any weapon. The turning point. The quantum labs aboard Earth's orbital station Helios buzzed with activity. Dr. Emily Zhang stood before a holographic model of what could change the course of the war. The resonance matrix. The Lizara's psychic energy, when properly channeled through our quantum technology, can create disruptions in spacetime itself, she explained to Admiral Chen. Behind them, Lizara scientists worked alongside human engineers, their bioluminescence pulsing in sync with the machinery. The Tarketh had regrouped after their defeat, gathering the largest fleet ever recorded in galactic history. But they hadn't counted on this breakthrough. The first tests came sooner than expected. Tarketh scouts penetrated Earth's defensive perimeter, testing for weaknesses. Instead, they encountered humanity's new defensive system. The resonance matrix activated. Lizara consciousness, amplified through quantum networks, rippled through space. Reality itself seemed to bend. The crystalline scouts found their weapons passing through phantom targets, while real ships struck from impossible angles. But the Tarketh had one final card to play. Their flagship, a massive crystalline structure the size of a small moon, emerged from hyperspace near Mars. Its weapon systems began to power it up, not targeting Earth's fleet, but the planet itself. They're going to make an example of us, Chen realized. Show the galaxy what happens to species that defy them. Zhang's team had anticipated this. The resonance matrix wasn't just defensive technology. It could be weaponized. But using it at full power would require a deep joining of human and Lizara consciousness, deeper than any previous attempt. The risks were catastrophic. Carol, now Earth's chief Lizara advisor, stepped forward. We will join with you. Our people's minds, together, can overcome even this. The neural link activated. Across Earth's fleet, humans and Lizara merged consciousness. The experience was overwhelming. Millennia of different evolutionary paths, different ways of perceiving reality, crashed together in an instant. The Tarketh flagship fired. Its beam, capable of cracking a planet's crust, lanced toward Earth. But it never arrived. The resonance matrix, powered by the combined consciousness of two species, didn't just deflect the attack, it folded space around it. The beam curved back on itself, transformed by forces that defied conventional physics. The flagship's perfect crystalline structure, subjected to its own weaponry filtered through human Lizara quantum manipulation, began to fracture. Cracks spread across its surface like lightning through glass. Then something unexpected happened. As the flagship broke apart, the neural link revealed the truth about the Tarketh. They weren't just militant expansionists. They were afraid of change, of evolution, of anything that threatened their rigid, crystalline perspective of how the galaxy should be. In that moment of revelation, humanity and the Lizara sent a unified message through the quantum network. Not of victory or dominance, but of understanding. They offered the surviving Tarketh not surrender, but collaboration. The response came slowly. The remaining Tarketh ships, their perfect formations shattered, held position. Their next transmission shocked everyone. We wish to understand. This was humanity's true victory, not the defeat of an enemy, but the transformation of one. The Tarketh, who had never known anything but absolute certainty, faced the possibility of change. And for the first time in their history, they chose to embrace it. Dr. Zhang watched as the first Tarketh representatives entered the quantum labs, their crystalline forms refracting light in patterns that now seemed less threatening and more beautiful. Sometimes, she mused, the greatest breakthroughs aren't technological at all. The war wasn't over, but its nature had fundamentally changed. Three species, each with their own way of seeing the universe, had begun the long process of learning from each other. Earth had proven that strength comes in many forms, and the strongest bridges are built from understanding. Legacy of Defiance. 10 years after the first contact with the Lizara, Earth had transformed. The combined knowledge of three civilizations, human innovation, Lizara consciousness, and Tarketh crystalline technology, had created something unprecedented in galactic history. The final Lizara evacuation ships arrived in Earth's solar system, greeted by structures that defied traditional physics. Quantum crystalline habitats, powered by psychic resonance, orbited the sun like artificial planets. Earth had not just saved a species, they had helped them evolve. Admiral Chen, now showing his age, stood before the Galactic Concordat. Earth's admission as a full member was no longer in question. We chose to stand with the Lizara not because it was safe, but because it was right, he declared. In doing so, we found something greater than victory. We found transformation. The Tarketh representatives, their crystalline forms now incorporating organic patterns inspired by their former enemies, added their voices in support. Their civilization, once rigid and unchanging, had discovered the strength and adaptation. But the greatest change was in humanity itself. The neural links with the Lizara had left their mark. Humans began developing latent psychic abilities, while the Lizara gained deeper understanding of physical sciences. The Tarketh learned to see beyond perfect patterns, finding beauty in chaos. Dr. Zhang's quantum labs became universities where all three species studied together. The resonance matrix, once a weapon, now powered faster than light communications across the galaxy. Each civilization maintained its uniqueness while growing beyond its original limitations. Other species watched and learned. The galaxy saw that power came not from dominance, but from the courage to reach across differences. Humanity's foolish decision to protect a dying race had catalyzed an evolutionary leap for three civilizations. The stars that had been battlefields became bridges, and in the combined consciousness of human intuition, Lizara insight, and Tarketh precision, a new understanding emerged. The universe was vast enough for all kinds of life, all forms of thought, all paths of evolution. This was humanity's legacy, not just survival or victory, but the proof that compassion could be the strongest force in the universe. They had shown that the right choice, however difficult, could transform enemies into allies and challenges into opportunities. As the new Earth-Lizara Tarketh alliance took its place in galactic society, Chen reflected on that first fateful decision to stand with a dying species. We didn't just save them, he told his grandchildren. We saved ourselves. We proved what humanity could be at its best. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly the point.